I had a dual concentration in finance and decision science, which I'm sure is a whole lot different today than it was when I graduated in 1984. But at the time, I was very interested in being in sort of the most competitive areas of Wharton, which was clearly finance at that time. Wall Street was not something I had specifically had designs on until I had a couple of job opportunities and a couple of other jobs, and they weren't as competitive and intense as I was looking for. So I recognized that I needed to sort of shift gears and look for opportunities on Wall Street. So it wasn't actually the first area that I was considering. I actually had an interest in music and business, and I wanted to combine my interests because I love the arts. I mean, I was an artist when I was a young child and on and off through my life, but I was much more a musician than an artist growing up. I studied piano from the time I was 6, and by the time I was 18, I did a concert at Carnegie Recital Hall, which was a very exciting moment when I was 18. And that was sort of the pinnacle of my piano career. I took a couple of music classes at Penn, but I never went on to study, concert piano or anything like that. But I actually started in the college, and I transferred into Wharton right after freshman year. So as soon as I entered Penn, I knew I wanted to be more on a Wharton track. I think my goal, as opposed to Wall Street, was to really just be economically independent of my parents, live in Manhattan, and work in the city. So those were sort of my big goals. And I also wanted to try to find a job that combined my interest with the arts and business. The 3 adjectives I would describe Wall Street are intense, exhilarating, and multidisciplined. So intense is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, once I became a stock analyst, about 2 years into being on Wall Street already, I started by helping another analyst who covered a couple of industries, and then I was asked to pick up my own set of industries. So those days of marketing as a stock analyst were literally meeting, lunch, meeting, dinner, flight to the next city. I mean, you would have these marketing trips, scheduled for you. It was a day in Boston, or 2 days, actually 2 days in Boston. It would be a week in Europe. It would be, the Midwestern trip. So all these trips got scheduled by the sales force on Wall Street. There was a whole sales force that helped market the analysts, all the equity analysts in the department. So the intensity was very high. And it was extremely competitive. So because equity research is such a flat organization where you have one analyst that is a specialist in one industry group, you weren't so much competing with your peers within your department. You're competing with your peers around the street. So there was the Solomon analyst, there was the Morgan Stanley analyst, there was the analyst, from all these different firms. And you were really competing with this small little peer group of other like-minded analysts. But it was exhilarating because I got to meet all the senior management of the companies I covered. And I covered entertainment and leisure companies. So I was universally despised by most of my peers because I covered the funnest companies. So I got to go to Disney World every year and expense that because of my analyst, trips. I got to go on the cruises for Carnival and Royal Caribbean. It was terrible. It was really terrible. Nobody should have to do that. So it was very exhilarating to meet the management of all these companies, to get to know them. When I thought about equity research, I actually thought it was going to be really boring because who wants to watch a stock go up and down every day and follow what one company does in an industry? Well, that was really far from accurate. It was unbelievably interesting. And you actually got to understand why the stock was going up and down every day. You could literally, understand that if the margin was expanding, the stock was going up. Or if their growth was slowing in this particular product line, the stock was going down. I mean, you became so simpatico with this company and their trajectory that you became an expert. I mean, you literally watched it every minute of every day. You knew what that stock was doing and why. And so that was fascinating and really exhilarating. And of course, covering that industry set was more than fun. And it's multidisciplined in the sense that you have to be good at everything. You have to be good at talking to clients. You have to be good at marketing yourself. You have to be good at picking out what topics to write about from an industry perspective. You had to differentiate yourself as an analyst. You had to sell the sales force on your ideas or they wouldn't go out and talk to their clients about it. You had to write up a storm. You had to be responsive when industry news was breaking or company news was breaking. They announced an M&A. You know, Time Warner is buying Turner Broadcasting. They don't care that you're arriving in Bermuda on vacation. No, no, no. You have to stop your vacation. You have to hold everything and you have to, you know, basically work like a maniac and understand the rationale, get on the call, make a, you know, a cogent analysis of this, and then broadcast it to the world in terms of your point of view. So talk about being in a fishbowl. This kind of job is like sitting in the middle of a fishbowl and everybody can measure your success every day of the week because the stocks that you recommend, either they go up or they go down, and you have to be able to say, I was wrong. And if you can't say, I was wrong for these reasons and I can do better next time, the sales force won't even look at you. I mean, you have to be very humble, and that kind of job makes you very humble very quickly. After 17 years on Wall Street, then I worked for 6 years on the corporate side. The opportunity came out to work for Warner Music. I ended up taking Warner Music public with the management. So when I left Wall Street, I went over to initiate their investor relations department at Warner Music, and I helped take them public. And going on the roadshow for that particular IPO was very unique because here I was seeing all my former clients. So all the people that I used to see on the buy side who covered entertainment and leisure companies, I was now pitching to buy into Warner Music's IPO. So it was a very interesting twist of fate. But after 6 years at Warner, where I ran investor relations and also a corporate strategy group, which was a lot of fun, the company went private. So the job kind of disappeared. They didn't need investor relations after they went private. And they actually provided me some outplacement services coming out of Warner Music. And there was a very clever assistant there. She was in the front, the receptionist, and she knew that I started to take painting classes at the Art Student League at night, you know, while I was working at Warner Music. So I painted as a child and on and off through my life. Then I started to, you know, paint more aggressively at night. I had two children which I raised while I worked on Wall Street, who were now entering the high school years. And I wanted to, you know, in my life plan, I wanted to be around when they were in their high school years. I thought it was more important than being there when they were really little. It was more important to be there in sort of those years. For whatever reason, that was what, you know, was in my head. So I started to paint more and more. And this woman offered me a show at their corporate offices. So instead of looking at board seats and board representation and other kinds of job opportunities, I put up about 30 paintings on 2 floors, which started to sell in their corporate offices. And I said, you know what, this is so much fun, and I really want to spend more time, you know, at home with the kids and develop this art practice. So what started as, you know, something that I wanted to give a shot to grew into a huge passion and a business, and has now become, you know, an opportunity that has really blossomed over the last 10 years. It's changed dramatically. All my in-person shows were canceled. We're moving to mostly virtual shows. I used to host a lot of events in this beautiful space for local businesses. I would host my own events. It's sort of a gallery. It's a working studio gallery, so I would have people coming in and out. So it's changed very substantially. And it's also changed in the sense that not only has it affected my work, some pieces, especially when things were kind of crashing down in March, my pieces got very dark. But you just have to be super creative. I just launched an Etsy store yesterday with about 80 different items. I found wearable art, so now I'm converting my paintings into, very reasonably priced scarves and masks and pocketbooks. So trying, to do lots of different things. I have a virtual exhibition that I created. I have one woman that helps me who's an amazing digital designer, and she took Photoshop and we literally curated this space that I'm in with a totally different set of paintings. And then she photoshopped them onto the walls. And then I created another show called Turning Points, which took you through the whole history of the different kinds of series of paintings that I make and what's the story behind them, and the evolution of each of the series, because I continue to develop each one of them over time. So I've gone crazy with lots of video product, virtual product. I have virtual walkthroughs of my space. Even my museum show, I was doing virtual walkthroughs at that time. That's what we do nowadays. Success as a Wall Street analyst was becoming ranked. It was pretty simple by Institutional Investor magazine. That was sort of the goal, the big goal that every analyst had. So that was something I worked extremely hard to achieve. I ultimately achieved that. I got a double ranking in entertainment and leisure, but believe me, I sweated big time to achieve that, and it took years to do. And leisure was a category that didn't even exist on Wall Street, and I lobbied II to add that as a category. They ultimately did, which was really exciting. So success on Wall Street, there were so many metrics that they use. It was crazy. Performance evaluations were pretty scary. I mean, they could ding you for anything. I mean, it was, you weren't making enough calls, or you weren't making enough marketing visits, or, they evaluated every single metric possible. How many times you were on the morning call? Was it a proactive call or a reactive call? How many questions did you get as an analyst, on the call? How many outgoing calls did you make? How many downloads of your reports did your investors, did the analyst or the investment community take of your reports? How many votes did you get by the various constituencies? So on Wall Street, everything was black and white. And ultimately, as an analyst, it was II. As an artist, it's really about enjoying myself. I mean, this is really supposed to be the really fun chapter. All the investment that I made through the years to be able to fund having space like this and my materials as an artist, all came from that hard work that I did all those years. So this was really my give back to myself. And, truly, I feel like I've already achieved the success that I want, but I continue to push myself to do more and better just because that's my nature.